Okay, hey guys, and welcome to a fantastically exciting week on the Underwater Realm video blog. This is week 26, so this is 6 months into the project. You'll notice there wasn't a blog last week for week 25. That's because we were fantastically busy doing the first major test shoot. Now, 6 months into the project, everybody's been working really hard on their individual departments, but this is the first time that everything really comes together at once in the same place with cameras rolling to make sure that all these techniques work in practice and not just in theory. So it's been a really exciting time. It's been full of ups and downs, and we're going to run you through a couple of the highlights as we go through the test shoot at Shepperton Studios. So the week running up to the test shoot was a bit of a nightmare, to be perfectly honest with you, for a number of different departments. It's a very hard deadline, and we have to rely on a lot of different things coming together. It was a little bit late getting some of the budget through. We ended up in struggle with a couple of suppliers there. We also had some issues with couriers getting stuff through in time, and when it did come through, there was some resources and materials we were working with completely new workflows to us, so stuff that we weren't used to working with, especially when you're manufacturing things like props and sets. It's not like on a computer. You can't hit undo. So we had a couple of mistakes there, but we worked on through them. We had a couple of nights where there was no sleep, just a hell of a lot of coffee and Red Bull, and we got through, and with a very kind of bruised and battered and very tired and angry crew, we got all the way there, all finished very late Friday night, and we arrived at Shepperton Studios W stage at about midnight on the Friday. But I tell you, immediately upon opening that door and hitting those studio lights, all those pains and aches just melted away. You end up in a proper movie studio. There's nothing quite like it for the first time when you know you're there to shoot your movie. It's 40 meters, 25 meters, 10 meters up, a colossal space with two walls entirely green screen cyclorama. You can get up into the gantry, and you've got overhead access to every square foot of the stage, and it's just a really validating feeling to be like in a proper movie studio for the first time. So we arrived Friday night, and everything kind of melted away there, and then we came back Saturday morning after offloading the van the previous night to start the ball rolling and to start each department getting up to speed and making sure that everything's working in the space before the Sunday where everything is all shot. So first of all, we manufacture our set. Now the set had already been pre-built in Realm House back down here in the West Country, but it will have to be disassembled and reassembled the following morning. So it's a 16 by 16 foot grid. It's polystyrene with a ton of sand tipped over the top of it, raked out to make it look as if the sand is rolling and dune-like. And then on top of that, we've got polystyrene rocks that we manufactured, and then some seaweed. We're going to be going into more detail on all of that in the future blog, where we actually highlight the manufacturing process and the pros and cons and the lessons learned there. But suffice to say, we put together this 16 by 16 set, and we had to light it like it looked like it was underwater. Now obviously that's something that Eve's been working on for a while, and she brought all those skills to bear here at the test shoot, along with the help of Sam Heasman, who was actually our gaffer, and a lot of lighting that came from Panalux, thanks to Barnaby at Panalux, and thanks to Gaffer and DOP Ash Palin for actually putting together the list of kit that he suggested we acquire from Panalux. He'd actually been shooting as a gaffer on a movie the previous week in the same stage that we were in, W stage in Shepperton, so he knew the space like the back of his hand, and it gave us some really useful advice. So even Sam put together all the lighting, and they bounced a number of different light sources up at a couple of silver foil frames that were hanging from the ceiling and being displaced by a fan. So similar to the very first technique, but just a very refined version that I think you'll see here from some of the images. Once they're actually falling on a set that size and we're covering a large area, really believable effect. Very top heavy, nice light, nice and soft with a good wrap to it, and some really nice effects. But a set's nothing without talent, so we ended up having to start work getting our actor, or in this case aerialist, into the set and have him fly around the set. Now obviously this is impossible without wirework, so we had the good chaps from By Foy came along, and we had Adam, we had Jay, we had Martin, all gave up their weekend for the love of the project and came along with a lot of very cool toys, which comprised two long gantries that went up into the ceiling and could pull a harness along each of them using an electric winch and the careful hands of the operators. We then strapped Will Davis, our aerialist, into those harnesses. Now, it's important to have an aerialist for something like this. When you haven't got 6 months of rehearsal, you need somebody that's immediately got that core strength. They can hold themselves horizontally, just being held from the hips, without trembling and shaking and sagging all over the place. So Will did a fantastic job and held himself really, really well. And with the help of the guys from By Foy, created some beautiful swimming through the air effects, overseen by Mark, obviously, who's been working on the wire work up until now. So we've got all of that in place. We've got costume, we've got haze from the set for special effects, we've got makeup in place. We need a camera to shoot on. A fantastic guy called Andi Martin came along. Obviously we had 5D, 7D, EX1 on set, but we wanted to bring out some big guns to really kind of test this effect. And Andy brought along his Red 1 camera. He also brought along his Epic M camera, which was really, really exciting because it's a completely new platform for us. But it was great to kind of get a comparison for how all those different platforms work and see what we really need to shoot the rest of this project on now. Hopefully that's all going to be epic, and we're going to be shooting on the same camera rigs as James Cameron's shooting Avatar 2 and as Peter Jackson is using to shoot The Hobbit. So a really, really exciting time, and we're kind of reaching that peak of technology for the cameras. So it's all about what you put in front of the lens. It's all about how you light it, all about how you tell those stories, and it's no longer about kind of scrabbling for the best camera you can get. So very, very cool to come and play with those toys. Fantastic vibe all over the set. Now obviously we're on Shepperton Studios. It's a wonderful space for making movies. It's not just the stage we were in, it's the fact that you're on a studio lot, so all of the industry best are in a mile radius of you, and if they're not there, they're up the road at Pinewood Studios, or they're in Soho. It's just a really, really interesting way to work, and completely new for us as indie filmmakers who've been spending most of our time hiking across Dartmoor trying to make movies. Suddenly all of that struggle is taken away from you, and if anything it's more of a challenge, because it means that you've got no problems to distract you. You've got everything you need there. It's all about just getting that story in the lens, getting it right, and really just performing to the peak of your ability. The reason we got the space actually was through the kindness of a guy called Noel Tovey at Pinewood Group. Pinewood are really, really big on supporting up-and-coming British talent, so they were really, really kind to us. In fact, on that note, we ended up meeting Simon Pegg over the test shoot, which was a highlight for a lot of the crew. They're actually shooting a movie there called The Fantastic Fear of Everything, which is another Pinewood movie that's being supported by the Pinewood Group, and they were shooting over the weekend and had a bit of a caffeine crisis being in on a weekend shoot, so we ended up taking them a couple of crates of Pepsi Max. So big thumbs up to our sponsors there for sending us so much Pepsi Max that we could afford to give some to some celebrities while we were there. So really, really good fun. The shoot went fantastically well. It was long hours, but a really, really good vibe on set. A lot of people all working very focused, very hard on one goal. So really, really good time was had by all. As I say, in future vlogs we're going to be going over in more detail over the props manufacture, over the costume manufacture, over the set manufacture, and maybe a little bit more of a breakdown on the lighting. And of course, a couple of days after the test shoot we actually held our underwater auditions for the first time, so we're going to be doing a review of how that went and all the lessons we learned along that little journey too. So I'm going to leave you now with a montage of some of the best moments from the Shepperton test shoot, and we will catch you next week on theunderwaterrealm.com. Before you all go now, just one last note. The guys at Pinewood Studios, including Noel, who allowed us into the space, have actually been doing a charity run. They actually did the Three Peaks Challenge the same weekend that we were doing the test shoot. They're raising money for charity. They're incredibly busy people. They're incredibly supportive of the British film industry. There's going to be a link at the bottom of the video here. Click through and please donate. Obviously we don't have donations on our website, but if you want to support in any way at all, click through here and donate to a number of the different charities that they're supporting, because they're doing fantastic work. Enjoy the montage that's coming up now, and as I say, we will catch you next week on theunderwaterrealm.com.